boys and girls. Remember when we last left? Bram Maddox had been shot in the skull, and we all like gasped at the moment. But then we found out his wounds actually weren't too serious, and that he was safely moving on. However, the last sentence we read, but before he had time to think it over, he was in for another surprise. You have a visitor, the army doctor announced one day, and in walked a glaring Mr. North. Do you know what it cost me in time and money to find you? The circus owner demanded. You're going to prison, boy, for kidnapping my elephant. As soon as her wounds are healed, she's coming with me on the next ship to New York. While Bram was in jail awaiting his trial, Mr. North tried to load Maddox onto the ship. The big elephant seemed very nervous, looking everywhere for her friend. When men came to lead her up the dock, she froze on the spot. Pushing and shoving couldn't move her an inch. When they tried to beat her with a club, she simply curled her massive trunk around the weapon and threw it away. Finally, Mr. North was forced to send for Bram to be released from jail. You can come on the boat with us and keep this beast in order, he told him. But if there is one bit of trouble, I will personally throw you both overboard. You understand? Yes, sir, Bram told him with a huge smile. Come on, Mosey, let's go. And to the exasperation of Mr. North, the boy rode the huge elephant, now as docile as a kitten, right past him, up the gangplank, and onto the ship. And so it was that a few weeks later, Maddox and Bram stood proudly together on the upper deck of the ship as it steamed past the Statue of Liberty and into the New York harbor. J. North presents Maddox, the world's greatest elephant, spectacular tricks, center ring. Over the next 6 months, Bram taught Maddox some of the most spectacular tricks an elephant was ever to do. Everyone wanted to see them, and before long, they were the stars of the Ringling Brothers Circus. Their act was in the center ring, the place of honor. It was truly a proud moment for the pair who had come so far together. For many years, they traveled the states together. Audiences loved them wherever they went. And then, one fine May day, disaster struck again. Fire in the Big Top. Within minutes, the tent was ablaze. Hundreds of people, screaming in terror, blocked the exits and trampled one another in their desperate attempts to escape. Bram gathered up as many children as he could find, and Maddox lifted them in her huge trunk and deposited them on her back, then carried them all out to safety. Bram and Mosey went back into the burning tent again and again, rescuing as many people as they could. On their last trip, they raced for the open air and made it out just as the tent exploded in a fiery blaze. Maddox was severely burned. Circus workers threw buckets of water on her smoking skin, but the fire had done its damage. It was many months before she could walk again, and huge white scars covered most of her body. Mr. North called Bram into his office. We can't have that ugly, scarred old beast in our show anymore, he said. Put her out back until I decide what to do with her. Bram went to the bank and drew out all of his savings. I would like to buy Maddox from you, he told Mr. North, putting the money on the table. But Mr. North just looked at him stone-faced. No, never. Later that day, without telling Bram, he secretly sold Maddox to a man who came and took her away in the middle of the night. Bram begged Mr. North to tell him who had bought her, but the circus owner would not. Instead, Mr. North fired him from the circus and barred him from the premises. Broken-hearted, Bram set out alone to search for his friend. He began hitching rides around the country and working on farms when he needed money. Everywhere he went, he put up posters and took out ads in the newspaper asking for information about the whereabouts of a giant scarred elephant, but to no avail. 10 years passed. Elephant for sale, cheap. That was all the ad said. A rancher who trained animals and rented them out to the motion picture industry saw it in the paper and drove his truck up into the Ozark Mountains to check it out. She's a mean old thing, the man who had placed the ad told him. You can have her for $1,000 if you want her, but be careful, she is a killer. The rancher went around the back of the house and was horrified by what he saw. A giant old elephant, skinny and covered with scars, was chained to an oak tree. Kids were throwing rocks at her. The man ran them off and approached the poor old beast. He offered her food, but she seemed hungrier for affection and allowed the gentle stranger to lead her away without protest. The rancher had to take the chain as well. The links of it were embedded in her leg. She'd been wearing it for so long. No one expected the elephant would work, but the rancher and his staff thought they were doing a kindness by allowing her to live out her last days in comfort. Then one day the rancher left a radio on near her stall. The sound of a circus came on. The old elephant began to dance. She swayed and trumpeted, waving her trunk in time to the music. She must have been a circus performer, the rancher marveled. He began to work with her and discovered that she still knew many tricks. It was about a year later that a weather-beaten old man came by the ranch asking for work. I used to train circus animals, he explained to the rancher. Maybe I can help out around here. Ever work with elephants, the rancher asked, leading the way to the fields where the elephants were trained. The man's eyes brightened as he walked among them. I once worked with the greatest elephant that ever lived. Maybe you've heard of her. Her name was Modoc. Just then came a loud, bellowing trumpet. An elephant by the fence had heard her name. Modoc, Modoc, Bram cried. It can't be. But it was. She broke past the fences, nearly ran over, then swung him up in her trunk, rumbling with joy. After all those years, Modoc and Bram were together again. Well, boys and girls, I hope you love that story, The World's Greatest Elephant, as much as I did. I would love to have a quick discussion with you. I'll let you know when, and I'll see you and talk to you soon. Bye.